Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, staff, council. Welcome to this Monday, October 3rd council meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the October 3rd regular council meeting now be opened at 7 p.m. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. I'll now ask everyone to rise for the playing of our national anthem. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Luck.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to disclose items 7E and 7F as I work with EVB Engineering.
All right, thank you for that. Are there any other? Seeing none, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have a presentation which has been deleted from the agenda, that being item 6A, the award presentation. And we have several items that have been requested to be pulled from the consent agenda to items for consideration, those being item 10A, the Sapphire Estate Phase 5 update, 10B, the Lancaster Pump Station Emergency Repair Report, and 10C, the Recycle Coach Implementation Report.
All righty. Thank you for that. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 5, approval of the minutes for the September 20th meeting. Moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the minutes of the September 20th regular council meeting be approved as circulated. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And we'll get right into presentations and delegations. And we have Glen Walter Wastewater and Water Treatment Plant Environmental Assessment. Mr. Vincelli. And Mr. Sege, Dylan.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This evening we have Mr. Vincelli with us from EVB Engineering. Tonight he will be reviewing the Glen Walter Water Treatment Environmental Assessment, and he will be giving Council an update and a couple future dates that will be coming up in the near future.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, and Administration for your time this evening. Again, we have completed the master servicing plan for the Glen Walter area, and we have now commenced the environmental assessment for the expansion of both the water and the wastewater treatment plants. All right, so at the completion of the master plan, there were a number of recommendations that were made to council and were accepted. So right now, we're addressing the two recommendations that are contained within the yellow block at the top of the page, which is the expansion of the Glen Walter Water Treatment Plant, as well as the Glen Walter Water Pollution Control Plant or Wastewater Treatment Plant. So items number 3 and number 4, the township was successful in getting some ICIP funding through the green stream, and I believe they're now in motion to bring those projects into fruition. And then items number 5 and 6 were approved through the master plan and will continue in the phasing plan of moving this entire project forward. So at the completion of the Glen Walter Servicing Master Plan,
Sorry, Mark.
the recommendation was to service the Glen Walter core area as well as some of the adjacent areas within the immediate proximity to those boundaries. During our final public information center and then through some correspondence during the 30-day circulation period, there were some residents who lived in the Bayview Estates as well as the, not Sutherland's Drive, but the Fairview Estate subdivision that had commented on being more interested in being part of this project. So upon completing the master plan and starting the next step of the process, the project steering committee had made the decision to resurvey those 3 areas to determine whether or not there was a more general acceptance of being part of this project. So 4 different options were presented to those residents. So options 1, 2, and 3 had varying levels of funding from different levels of government, which would help offset the cost for each individual resident. And then option number 4 was to not participate in the project. So upon completing the survey results, there was an overwhelming response in support of the project if a high level of funding would be received from the higher levels of government. So if their individual costs were offset by higher levels of government funding, then there was definitely an overwhelming interest in participating in the project. But if there were no funding, it really dropped for the support of this project. So the project steering committee has reviewed these results, and they're advancing this project with the following recommendations, so that if a high level of funding is achieved through this project and through any future funding applications, we will include those 3 areas within the servicing area of the new plants. Should that level of funding not be realized, they could be removed, either individually, depending on which 3 areas would like to have service, depending on the funding levels. You can make the adjustments at that time. But the Glen Walter Water Treatment Plant, as well as the Water Pollution Control Plant, will have to be expanded at some point in the near future in order to continue to have growth in the area. So the project steering committee has defined the following problem statement that we're trying to address when we're looking at the options of moving this project forward. So it's been defined as the Glen Walter Water Treatment Plant and Glen Walter Water Pollution Control Plant have been providing service to the community for 33 years and are approaching their rated capacity, with some components reaching their expected end of service life. Additionally, there are privately serviced areas adjacent to the Glen Walter area who could benefit from the provision of municipal water and wastewater services. Expansion of these critical pieces of infrastructure is required to ensure that the continued prosperity in the area. So we will be taking this problem statement forward to the public for their comment, and we can adjust depending on the feedback that's received. So the alternate solutions that we're going to be addressing for these 2 services include 5 very general alternate solutions at this point. So A1 would be to do nothing for the water pollution control plant, and if we were to do nothing, we would be maintaining the status quo, and there would be limited capacity available to support additional growth, as well as some components of the plant would continue to age towards the end of their service life and would require replacement in the near future, resulting in additional costs for the existing residents. Alternate solution A2 would be to optimize the plant. In the past 12 years, the plant has been re-rated twice. So I have reviewed that past literature, and I do believe there is no further opportunities to optimize this plant to get more capacity out of it. Alternate A3 is to expand the plant on the existing site. Now, the existing site houses the water plant, the water pollution control plant, as well as a maintenance garage. There wouldn't be sufficient space on the existing property for the expansion of the water pollution control plant. So this alternate solution will not be carried forward because of that limitation on this property. There is the alternate A4, which is the construction of a new plant on a new site. So the project steering committee is in the process of looking at alternate sites that can be utilized for this expansion. We're not carrying forward any properties at this point, but we will be doing an evaluation to see which properties would be best suited for that expansion, and we will carry that into the next phase of this project. Then alternate solution A5 is to connect to the city of Cornwall and send all of the wastewater that's generated in this community to the west, to the city of Cornwall for treatment. The city of Cornwall has received a letter from our CAO, and we will be awaiting their response after the election of their new officials. So similarly, the water treatment plant has very similar alternate solutions. So again, B1 would be to do nothing, and there is some extra capacity in the water plant, but there's not sufficient capacity in the plant to continue to service the projected growth in the area. So that solution would not address the problem definition that we have presented earlier. Alternate B2 is the optimization of the existing water treatment plant. We will take a look at it, but because we're looking at increasing its capacity from 995 cubic meters per day to just under 3,000 cubic meters per day, the chance is that we're not going to be able to hit the higher target rated capacity that's required. Alternate B3 is to expand the plant on the existing site. With the removal of the existing water pollution control plant, there would be sufficient space generated on the existing site to support the expansion of the water treatment plant. So that is a viable solution that we will be looking at in the next phase of the project. Alternate solution B4 is the construction of a new plant on a new site. Because we are relocating the wastewater or the water pollution control plant, and we have made room for the water plant, unless there is something that's going to drive the township to remove all of the infrastructure from the waterfront, it does not make financial sense because we are able to reuse the existing building as well as the intake structure, which will reduce the cost of the overall project. Alternate solution B5 is also to connect to the city of Cornwall. So when we had contacted the city of Cornwall to request the wastewater service, we've also requested to get the water service for the area. So our next steps, we'll be taking this information to a public information center on Thursday, October 6th. It'll be hosted at the Glen Walter Fire Department building, and we'll be there from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock with presentation boards that we would be happy to show to the residents of the area. We'll have comment sheets and sign-in sheets to accept any comment from the public at that time. So following the completion of that public information center, We'll be looking at completing some supplementary studies on potential properties that we're looking to acquire. We'll continue to consult with the City of Cornwall about the options of obtaining municipal services for water and wastewater from them. And then the next phase of this project is to draft an environmental study report, which will make recommendations and complete the environmental assessment process. So that's a brief overview of everything that's taken place. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Fincelli. I appreciate your report. Are there any questions or comments of council? Councillor Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Vincelli, for bringing this to us. I guess I want to start by first congratulating the members of the working group to make the decision to resurvey the area. It's very important to have current information, and as it so happens, like 4 years ago around this time, I went through that area, and I recall clearly that there was only one household that was even remotely interested in the idea of connecting. And I was there this weekend, and it was a complete change of perspective on the situation. Some folks are hard yeses on moving moving forward quickly, and I mean, very reflective of the data that you collected. So I'm glad it's not just my sense. I'm glad that there's data to support that. And I think more importantly, this whole project it's not just about the continued prosperity of the area. I mean, I think this is, I'll admit, in the past, I was probably not so excited about these projects, about expanding the water plant, but now I look at it as this is really our opportunity to contribute to solving the housing crisis. Because, I mean, there's so many lots that are on the shelf, subdivisions that are on the shelf right now because we can't move forward with this. So I think this is our way of helping address that. So I'm really glad to see this moving forward. I do have two questions. One, I think you were given a preview of, there's a map in the package that seems to indicate that Sutherland and Gilmore Hill and Elm are already serviced because they're in green. So I'm not sure if that was just the wrong map to grab, or if maybe I'm misunderstanding the purpose of the map.
Yeah, I apologize. Through you, Mr. Mayor, this drawing was taken from the master plan. So the green area just indicates that areas on the map that have been developed.
Have been developed.
That have been developed, not serviced,
okay.
but have been
Okay, good.
developed.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, if I may, my other question, when you look at those other alternate solutions, both for water and for wastewater, and maybe it's obvious or it's inferred, like, can you, are they decoupled in the sense that, like, connect to the City of Cornwall? Is there an option? I don't know if it makes any logical sense to, well, we'll just get, if we could just do water, or if we could just do wastewater with Cornwall, like, is that an option, or are these, like, are those, coupled? They have to go together necessarily?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
Nothing is coupled. Unless the City of Cornwall comes down with a hard fist saying you need to have both or no services at all. Each one of these solutions will be evaluated independently of the other service. So we'll be looking at water separate from wastewater.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we look forward to the public meeting this coming Thursday night in Glenwalter. Thank you very much for your report, and we'll see you there.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Now moving on to 77A, South Glengarry Pet Accommodations, boarding requests. Ms. Brunet.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and public, good evening. I'm here today following a request from South Glengarry Pet Accommodations to increase their kennel capacity. As you're aware, earlier this year, members of council passed a bylaw to allow for a maximum of 4 dogs at a house. After that, they would require a kennel permit. South Glengarry Pet Accommodations is a boarding kennel, so they have members that come for daycare or stay overnights, weeks at a time, months, depending on whatever the dog owners want. This request is specifically to increase from 15, which is what our current bylaw allows, to 25 dogs. The kennel has flourished. with COVID being a damper on it, to now everyone wants to leave again, and they have definitely seen an increase in demand. Therefore, they would like to increase it by 10. They're also proposing in the future to have an addition built on the kennel. This will go through planning and building to receive appropriate approvals. The owners of the kennel, Mrs. Matter, is now a certified dog trainer and member of the International Positive Dog Training Association. And this speaks to her qualifications and commitment to the kennel to ensure that it is always clean, good representation of the boarding services in general, as well as her own certifications. So when she has new dogs coming in, she can offer additional services, including classes, which this addition would allow for. And having the capacity increase to 25 would allow for not only overnight stays, but also training or daycare services. The number 15 dogs includes the daycare services. So even though they're not staying overnight, they're still included on how many dogs are actually staying at that kennel. The kennel has successfully maintained their license since 2010. During every site inspection, which is annually and more if needed, they have passed with flying colors. There's never been concerns from staff, myself, or previous of any negligence or sanitary concerns, anything of the sorts. It's always spectacular. They are located through over 300 meters from the nearest dwelling and are surrounded by agricultural operations. There's never been any complaints submitted for noise or nuisance from the dogs. In their request, they've also indicated about the addition to the building. Therefore, if they are permitted as of this evening to increase to 25, they would pursue the addition with the building and planning departments. Council is aware that based on the approval of the bylaw, that they have 3 options this evening with this request. It would be to approve it and modify it, approve it as is, or to refuse it. If there's any questions from council, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Brunet. I certainly am in favor of this. It's nice to see our local businesses flourishing. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Jaworski?
I'll be quicker than last time. I just want to say I have used this particular kennel, and everything in the report is accurate from my experience in terms of it's very well situated in the sense of very unlikely to cause any nuisance and extremely, extremely clean. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. Councillor Luck?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to resonate exactly what you both have said, that I know this farm, I know their operations. I am so happy to hear that it's a successful business, and I'm definitely in favor of promoting any sort of positivity that we can. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 151-2022 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approves the application from South Glengarry Pet Accommodations located at 20735 Concession 2 for an increase of 10 dogs for a total boarding capacity of 25 dogs at any time. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Brunet.
Mayor and Council.
Alrighty, moving on to staff report 152-2022, Chief Robertson.
Good evening, Council. This evening I bring a report to you on the septic system procurement for the new Williamstown Fire Station located at the site of the former roads maintenance garage. On last council meeting on the 20th of September, I brought forward a report that detailed the status of the existing septic system and that it would need to be replaced. Permit was taken and a plan developed, and that that plan was sent out to contractors. So we sent the information to 7 contractors. The report actually speaks to 6, but that's an error on my part. It actually was 7. Of the 7, One advised they would not be able to provide pricing as they did not have time in this construction season, or for sure during the project of the renovation. 3 provided no response as of September 27th. 2 did provide quotes. Both suppliers can complete the work and within the renovation time period, and they provided all information as per the plan. So in your report, the 2 contractors who did submit a proposal, Chrétien Excavation and Lausanne Trucking, the evaluation criteria speaks to, it breaks the procurement down into numerous sections. You will see that some of the items are not able, were not quoted on by one or both of the submitters. So as per their submission of $33,500, Fire Administration supports the award for the supply and installation of the septic system to Lausanne Trucking. This firm is qualified to complete the work as detailed in the plan and the permit. Now, one item that I will bring up, as noted, I invited 7 contractors to submit pricing. The one item that I did not do as per the procurement policy was I did not post it on southglengarry.com through our website. That was just between the 21st, the day after our council meeting, and when this report had to be prepared for the agenda, was only a period of about 3/4 of a week. So that, I just want council to be aware of that I did not do that one portion, but 7 local and area contractors were surveyed, so, or sent the information. So.
Okay, thank you very much for your report, Chief Robertson. Are there any questions or comments of council? Seeing none, moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 152-2022 be received, and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry award the supply and installation of a new septic system at the new Williamstown Fire Station located at 19686 William Street to Lausanne Trucking as per their submission of $33,500 plus HST, and furthermore that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any applicable documents. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Chief Robertson. And moving on to 7C, rescheduling of the 2023 budget meeting dates. Ms. McDonald.
Good evening, Council. So as the report notes, we're just looking to reschedule the budget meeting dates. They were sort of scheduled for part of the last term of council and the beginning of the next term. So just a quick housekeeping. If we are happy keeping it on Fridays, we would do it on November 25th and December 9th.
Okay, pretty straightforward report. Any questions or comments? Seeing none at this time, I agree. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it resolved that the staff report 153-2022 be received, and that the 2023 budget dates scheduled in 2022 be revised to November 25th and December 9th. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. McDonald. And moving on to staff report 154-2022, Ms. Compo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. From time to time, administration receives requests from members of the public to purchase property that is owned by the township. So this report details one such request from a property owner who is seeking to purchase an unopened road allowance, which is directly to the east of their property. And you'll note in your agenda package, there's a map demonstrating where the property is located and the unopened road allowance. So something that's a little bit more unique about this particular request is when there's a search of the title completed, and Ms. Haley, Ms. McDonald, please feel free to jump in if I misspeak, but the United Counties is registered as the owner of this unopened road allowance. However, there is a provision in the Municipal Act where if a highway is removed from an upper tier highway system, it then falls under the jurisdiction of the lower tier municipality. And the United Counties are are of the opinion that this unopened road allowance does not fall within their jurisdiction because it's not in their road naming bylaw. And so by that provision in the Municipal Act, it would then fall under South Glengarry's jurisdiction. So this is a file that's involved some discussion between myself as the clerk, as well as our General Manager of Planning, Building Enforcement, Ms. Haley, and our Infrastructure Manager, Sarah McDonald. Ms. McDonald and Ms. Haley don't have any concerns with council approving this request. So if the request is if the request is approved by council, what we're looking for this evening is to declare that unopened road allowance as surplus to the needs of the township, after which point we can move forward with the process to sell the property as per our sale and purchase of property bylaw. So I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions, I may direct them to Joanna and Sarah if I can't answer them, but we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
All righty, thank you very much. Pretty cut and dry as far as I'm concerned. These little properties, none of us know that we own them and their potential liabilities. So are there any other questions? Deputy Mayor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden. Yeah, no, I think, as I understand it, this is an older home. The folks making the request recently purchased it, and no one really knew about this unopened road allowance. I know I certainly did not, and I gather the previous owners of the house didn't know either. And I think it's something we have to go forward regardless, I think, because, or to do something, because as I understand it, there's a portion of the house that's actually like almost in the road allowance. So we need to do some sort of cleanup. And I think as it was stated, generally we want to keep access to the water, but in this case, I mean, the bank, it's just not something that we could ever do anything with. So I think it makes a lot of sense to declare it surplus.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any, Councillor Luck?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, Ms. Combo, can you explain, is that the reason why when we go to like the county GIS mapping, why we don't see it as like a road allowance?
I will defer that one to Ms. Haley.
Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Luck, if you change your layers to go from the assessment parcel fabric to Terranet's layers, where it actually shows the pins of the properties, you're going to see that there's two different pins located within that road allowance, and they're not part of the subject property to the west. I'm watching you change your screen. You might not actually have access to it now that I'm watching you. So I could show you at another time, but in a lot of the staff, when they work with their GIS, they rely on the parcel fabric with the red lines. Everything I do change to green lines because that represents really more of the registered parcels through the registry office, and it would be more obvious. But it's something that I don't randomly just review every layer of every property. A request would have to come forward for an anomaly to be found or to be noted. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you very much, Ms. Haley. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 154-2022 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry declare the unopened road allowance located east of 19679 William Street to be surplus to the needs of the township, and that administration proceed with obtaining an appraisal of the property. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to staff report 155-2022, Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I had thought long and hard about how to speak to this particular item since it has garnered a lot of interest, and I didn't really want to do disservice to everyone involved, and I have opted to speak, despite this intro, with brevity. So as council knows, a request was received earlier this year from Mr. McEwen regarding proposed modification to the turning circle at the end of Farlinger Drive. The modification is provided in your agenda package, and it is to modify the current turning circle into a hammerhead configuration with the aim to reduce smuggling activities. The proposal provided by Mr. McEwen indicated that all costs of this modification would be borne by him. When we originally brought this to council in June, I believe, council directed administration to host a public information session, which we did in early July on the township side. The session was attended by myself, CAO Mills, Deputy Mayor Jaworski, and our OPP liaison, who is behind me right now. At the public information session, we received a petition from a number of residents, which is also included with your agenda package. And the petition is generally to leave the cul-de-sac as it is. Again, to not really do disservice to anyone, all of the feedback that we received is contained within my council agenda. From our perspective as administration, the three options are do nothing, so status quo, to pursue the proposal provided by Mr. McEwen, or to pursue non-engineering alternatives. So looking at this as the general manager of infrastructure from a strictly infrastructure perspective, so putting aside any smuggling activities, the turning circle operates effectively for us. It provides space for our vehicles to turn around. If this were a new development, we would not entertain putting a hammerhead at this location, since hammerheads are typically used when we are anticipating that a road will be extended in the future. So a smaller footprint to not eat up property. And I suppose I would also add in that hammerheads are often seen to be temporary measures, so they're not, the end all to be all. If we bring in smuggling activities, and this is not, I'm going to caveat this is not my area of expertise. However, the OPVP has suggested that crime prevention through environmental design could be considered in this location, specifically improving natural surveillance by clearing some of the sight lines that are obstructed by the cedars. And by doing that, the attractiveness of this area to smugglers would be diminished. I'd also note that reducing smuggling or eliminating smuggling would likely take a while, and the best that anyone could hope for is some minor decreases in activities. Again, that is a thought and not my professional opinion. So I suspect council has questions, and I will open the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report, Ms. McDonald. Are there any questions or comments of council? Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Warden. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for this report. And thanks for all your work on this one, including stick handling the public consultation that was done. I agree that this situation has gathered a lot of attention, so I think it's important to sort of focus on the root of the issue. So certainly, I think it's agreed that there is smuggling in that area, and so if we're trying to find a solution to that, or if we're going to make any modifications to municipal property, I think we have to be certain, or as best as certain as we can be, relying on experts, that any action that the township takes is going to be part of the solution. Considering that we are going to something non-standard here. So I'm a layperson. I'm not an expert in these issues about the impact of what a hammerhead would be, but I haven't seen anything indicating that a hammerhead would reduce the amount of smuggling through that area. So I guess maybe that's my question to you, Ms. McDonald, is if there is other information out there that you have seen that indicates that there would be an impact in terms of reducing smuggling with a hammerhead, or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you, Mr. Mayor. In my, again, not expert opinion, no, I have not come across anything that would suggest that that sort of installation would be effective in this location without pursuing what was suggested by improving natural surveillance. So I will loop back. The original request was to allow for the installation of the hammerhead, to create a buffer area, and the installation of landscaping, security cameras, and lighting.
Yep.
I guess so supplemental. So thanks for confirming, I guess, what I just want to confirm. So speaking to that, I think then that unless new information comes to the township to indicate that this proposed solution is the right one, I think we should we should do nothing, but I think in terms of, we should not be modifying the turning circle. But certainly, I think we need to work with the OPP. We need to work with the residents in that area to ensure that we are on, aware of the issue, on top of the issue, so that, we can do our part with, specific things that we can do that are supported by, sort of the expert line of thinking in these kind of issues. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Deputy Mayor Jaworski's taken a lot of what I wanted to say, I believe, but I will go ahead anyway. I have seen nothing that shows me that this is going to change the smuggling at all, and to me, it's a step back. We have a good turning circle there. It's paved. It has curbs. I'm not interested in going back to a hammerhead, which was, would, to me, would be a step backwards as far as serving the residents of that area. So my opinion is to do nothing, and unless somebody can show us a reason that it's needed, and it would have to be, it can't be a wash either. It's going to have to show that if we're going to take that turning circle and take it backwards in time to something that's less desirable, harder for our plows, harder for the school buses, there has to be an actual concrete benefit. So I vote is to do nothing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I spent too much time standing in that traffic circle today. I think I spent about 2 hours down there. At this point, I agree with my council colleagues. I don't see where this could stop the potential smuggling. I think the only way to stop the smuggling at this point is probably fence off that open portion of that's allowing access to the river. It says right in the picture, loading zone, and I'm assuming that refers to the smuggling operations that were happening. So I think at this point, I don't see the point in spending lots of money, whether it's the townships or whether it's a member of the public's money, to redesign something that doesn't need to be at this point. So I would be as well in favor of option A, do nothing.
Okay. All righty. So I'll throw in my comments and then we'll go to a vote. There's a majority of option A, and I think it makes the most sense at this time. There's nothing that I've read either that the hammerhead would make a difference. So I think option A at this point is how we need to proceed. So can I just get a show of hands who wants option A? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that staff report 155-2022 be received, and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry receive the Firelingers Point petition submitted on July 6, 2022, and furthermore that in relation to the turning circle at the end of Firelinger Drive, that administration be directed to option A, do nothing. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And we're moving on to the next item. 7F, acceptance of Place Saint Laurent Phase 5. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the report before you is to accept accept the sanitary sewer water main services to the property line, roadway, and roadside drainage for Place Saint Laurent Phase 5. In my staff report on the first page, there. Is that the right picture? I know, sorry. Yes, this is it. I've just had, I'm sorry, Council, a momentary. I don't even know what page it's on, Kelly.
It's right here.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yes. Sorry. No, I'm just going to continue on that staff recommends acceptance of the works.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments in regards to the report in front of you? Seeing none, moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 156-2022 be received and that council approves the request for the acceptance of the works, including sanitary sewer, water main services to property line, roadway and roadside drainage from 2795264 Canada Inc., Place Saint Laurent Phase 5 subdivision. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to staff report 157-2022. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. This is a report being brought forward to council to provide you with information from this year's, I call them our miscellaneous Osim reports. So Osim being the Ontario Structural Inspection Manual, which dictates through the Ontario Bridge Act, I believe, or Bridge Standards Act, that all of our structures are inspected every second year. So these were picking up the 6 peanut line structures that haven't been inspected in this manner since, I believe, 2012, and 5 municipal drain crossings that aren't technically structures, but that were identified by our drainage superintendent, Gary McDonald, as requiring work. And it seemed like, since we were sending people out to look at our peanut line structures, that this would be an excellent time to have our failing municipal drain culverts looked at. The report goes through, and I suppose I will do a little chat here about municipal drains. So municipal drains are how water is conveyed through our township, and they are managed by the Drainage Act. And they are based, many of them were installed in this similar era, and we're going to see them start to fail over the next, I would say, immediate to 20-year period. When municipal drains are on private property, they're the responsibility of our drainage superintendent, and then they're assessed back to residents through their taxes. When they are on township property, so public property, they become the responsibility of the municipality. So every time a municipal drain crosses our roadway, crosses the peanut line being municipal property, or any kind of property that we may own somewhere else, we are the ones that are responsible for the maintenance of whatever that municipal drain is at that location, and typically it's a structure or a large culvert. So these 5 culverts, we brought forward what I've called first line at Provisional Drain, earlier this year, and that's the one that's currently being rehabilitated. There were 4 others, and you can see through this analysis and the summary reports from the Osim that they are in rough shape and will likely be requiring replacement, like full-on replacement, in the imminent future. I would say 1 to 3 years maximum, and we will continue to work with Gary McDonald, our drainage superintendent, to get ahead of these and kind of get a plan running forward. I don't have it in front of me, but Gary had in 2007 prepared a summary listing of all of the municipal drains on township property, and it's plentiful. It's not a small list. Moving forward to the peanut line structures, we picked up 5 of the anticipated 6. These structures were identified through a 1997, I believe, environmental assessment report that was prepared for the Cornwall subdivision in advance of the township taking ownership of the peanut line. And they were in that report identified as structures, but there are an anticipated additional 20 to 50 other culverts that varying sizes. And I believe about 25 of those 50-ish culverts would be on a municipal drain, so they will not be the cute little ones. They'll be these big guys. So of these, and we're picking up this 6th structure, so we'll have information on that one soon. We missed it by 200 meters, unfortunately, which is a bit of an embarrassment. So when we look at the peanut line structures, again, they are in rough shape. In the staff report, since I know it's kind of tough, I don't know, Kelly, or Madam Clerk, if you're able to go to the map that would be right after this. Yeah, right there. So anything on this map, the threes, so 3A, B, C, 3D, E, and F, those are the 6 peanut line structures, and you can see they cut the township in half. So we have again, Osim reports for 5 of those 6. And we'll be picking up the one on the Provisional Drain this coming fall. So these reports are provided to council for your information and to provide you with just basically information for your future decision making. And we felt it was important to speak to them a little bit, because receiving these reports for consideration is just about a jumble of information. And I really wanted to impress again the importance of our municipal drain structures crossing all township properties. So thank you for your time.
All right, thanks very much, Ms. McDonald. This was definitely a very interesting report, and there was a lot of information. It certainly hits home how important our asset management plan is, and I do appreciate this coming forward ahead of the budget season. One of the things that I would further say is that over the last couple of years attending the various conferences we attend, there's a lot of new technology that's coming out in regards to culvert replacements and stuff. And I certainly hope that staff will look into potential alternates to save some money in getting these projects done. So thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for the report. It feels tough to say thank you for the report when it's not good news, but it is good news for us to know about these things, and I think that's been a problem in the past, that we've kind of been burying our head in the sand a little bit with some of these structures. And as we've seen over the last few council meetings, they are very expensive to fix. They're not a $50,000 fix anymore. Some of them are $500,000 to fix. So we need to have them on our radar. We need to be thinking about them, and we need to really try to figure out, you know, how this council moving forward is going to address these things over the next few years. So it's good to bring it to our attention, and I think, and municipal drains have been, I think, what has made this township what it is in some ways. It's a township of farming communities, and we would not be able to farm or operate without these municipal drains. So they're important. I think it's a shame that they cost so much to keep them up, but we need to move forward, and we need to be aware of it at least. So we've made the first step, and we'll have to get, like our mayor has said, an asset management plan in place that will address this in the future years.
Thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll agree with Councillor Lang. There's these municipal drains are what makes our township have so much as far as the agriculture industry is concerned. It makes a lot of land workable and a lot more productive. Without them, we'd have some very tough pieces to drain to be able to farm. And yeah, as we've seen the last couple of meetings, a lot of these pipe arches can cost us a lot of money. We're not talking, again, $50,000 fixes. And as we look at the peanut line, I think we've got to take a better approach to these, especially with the peanut line. We used to look at these structures and crossings as, well, we'll fix them when they come due, or we'll use an older pipe and slap it in place. And we've got to get away from that. And if we're going to continue to maintain the peanut line and continue to use it as a recreation trail, we have to stop looking at it as be more proactive as opposed to reactive. So thank you for bringing the report.
Yep. Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden. My question, and I think I'm reading it all correctly, but I wanted to double check just because, you know, it's top of mind, and the next staff report deals with, you know, one of these structures. I just want to ensure that, so the bridge near Williamstown and the peanut line that we rehabilitated last year, and then the one that we're looking at the next staff report. I just want to be clear that the report, the inspection report here is set, you know, like in terms of like the support structure, the concrete and all that. Like, I just want to be sure that it's, you know, saying that, you know, those things are in good shape to be moving forward. You know, that we're not in a situation of putting good money after bad.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Things like the abutment walls on both the structures, so the peanut line over the south branch and the north branch of the Raisin River, will each require rehabilitation in the next 1 to 5 years, and varying scales.
Mm-hmm. But what, like, I don't really understand what that means. Like, I mean, rehabilitation, does that mean, you know, pointing, or does that mean knocking down the concrete and putting more new?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not a bridge engineer, so to speak, but on our other bridge jobs, rehabilitation isn't a full replacement. Like in the Osim, it distinguishes between rehab and replacement for each individual component, and abutments are very much a rehab. And from the photos, they don't appear to be in dire need of replacement. So I would think we're looking at rehab.
Okay.
and not full-scale replacement.
Okay, good. I'm glad that I wasn't sure of the definition that was being used there. And my other question is, in terms of the standards that they're using when they look at these structures, is it the same as for, vehicular traffic or like cars? Or is there a different standard applied for one that would have recreational vehicles or that sort of thing?
That is an excellent question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, these Osim, Councillor Luck is welcome to jump in at any time if she is more into bridges than I am. But Osim is a very prescriptive way of looking at individual components, so it's not judging its adequacy, I do not believe, for what it is bearing. How it's judging the specific condition of a visual inspection. So if it sees spalling, they estimate how much spalling there is in the concrete, for example. This is something that Ms. Servage and I were looking at earlier today. We found in our files for what was previously called Structure 1 for the Peanut Line, so at Bridge End, we called it 3A, that there's a pre-fire and post-fire inspection report for it, and the pre-fire details, what needs to be done, and the post-fire inspection report notes that it still does have deficiencies, but it's appropriate for ATV traffic. So that was not an Osim inspection. It was a more detailed inspection focused on determining adequacy for what was being carried. So in this, it's strictly a visual inspection of the condition of component A, component B.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I guess the assumption is that what it is was designed properly for what it is, and then it's a visual of the components if they're still in good condition. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor McDonnell.
Just I guess to point on Mr. Deputy Mayor Jaworski's comments. I guess as far as from what I saw when I reviewed all three bridges together, there appears to be very similar comments on all of them. I would assume that it's the fact that they were probably built in 1911 or something along those lines for those structures. It seems to be just minor rehabilitation as far as fixing some things with the structure, the concrete, and a lot of it is remove debris, tighten down the mats, fix some of the rivets or replace some rivets that are missing. I think we're fine structurally on these bridges. It's just, I think they may be going a little overboard with it, especially for what they were built for and what they're currently taking now as a load. I think we're okay.
Okay, so any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you for your report. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it resolved that staff report 157-2022 be received and that council receive the Ontario Structural Inspection Manual, OSIM, summary report for 5 municipal drain crossings and 5 penal line structures. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we're moving on into bylaw, nope, pardon me, 7H, Penal Line Bridge, Canada Road 19, Miss Servage.
Good evening, Council, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Before I get into this report, I just want to comment on Jan McDonald's report. This report highlighted a lot of areas that need work on the peanut line and at a large dollar amounts. So administration understands that a broader plan for the peanut line needs to be established. This was part of the recommendation in the Parks and Rec Master Plan to get a more detailed plan and consultation for the peanut line in order to plan strategically moving forward. There are multiple structures in need of rehabilitation. There are multiple land crossings that are in need of proper agreements for usage, and there is signage that I'm hoping to have completed this year. So since I started late last summer, we completed a bridge project, completed the master plan that touches on the peanut line with recommendations of looking into it further because it is a whole other animal on its own. And we've completed some resurfacing and now hoping to complete another bridge and in the middle of working on better signage. So a lot is being done, and that's just on the peanut line. So I know you see that there's lots more to be done on the peanut line, but everything is going to take time, as you can see, and obviously large dollar amounts too. So moving forward with the report, this report is regarding the Peanut Line Rehabilitation Project on County Road 19. This was brought to the last council meeting, and so I'm just bringing it forward again for council's consideration, and I've included some details, so I'll go through them now. There is a difference between the bridge that was constructed last year on the Peanut Line off of County Road 17. That being the steel grating for the surface was already purchased for County Road 17, the County Road 17 project, and therefore was not included in that tender. That steel grating is expensive and eats up a large portion of that cost. The railing guard will require more material than the one on County Road 17 because due to the girders not extending above the deck, whereas on County Road 17, the bridge girders did extend above the deck. Basic construction administration is part of the 19,000 engineering costs. I know Deputy Mayor Jaworski asked about construction admin costs, so I just wanted to make that clear that it is part of the engineering costs that's outlined in the report, which is separate from these tender submission amounts. And what I was getting to at the last meeting was that there are these Osim reports that Jim McDonald just brought forward that are required to be completed every 2 years. So the cost for those reports is separate from this project as well. This tender document is valid for 45 days, but I did outline in the report that proponents were to indicate an extra lump sum amount that would be charged to the township if the township were to extend the period of validity to 60 days. So Glengarry Millwright indicated that there'd be no additional cost to be added in order to extend the validity to 60 days. Therefore, the tender is valid until October 28th. As mentioned in the report, if we were to go ahead with the work in the tender, the bridge could last up to 20 plus years, provided that regular maintenance is completed. Although, as mentioned in the Osim reports, there is some repair required at the abutment walls. There are ways to reduce the cost of the project by changing the type of material that we are using. For example, a wooden surface. Obviously, this would not last as long. Change orders would have to be issued, which would cost more engineering time, as well as redoing the drawings for the project. As mentioned at the previous meeting, there are predicted concerns with material delays. Also, if we were to award the tender, we have now delayed it a couple of weeks because the timeline was based on being awarded at the last meeting. So it has been recommended by our engineer that we get the bridge to a state where it's safe to keep it open over the winter. And then if and when the project is awarded, administration will work with the proponent to establish a proper timeline. It is in the best interest of the township to work with the contractor to establish a realistic timeline because we do not want to close the bridge and then experience the delays and then we're closed for that much longer. So that's our recommendation. We will keep it to a minimal cost to keep it open for the winter. Our staff will replace some of the boards and reinstall the railing, but if there are items we cannot do, we will have to contract that out. Now we are going into staff rotation at the arena now that we're open. We only have 2, sometimes 1 facility operator during that day. So that's why I hesitate about saying that we'll do this in-house, just because we are, in the winter, we have minimal staff to just to maintain the arena, our facilities, outdoor spaces, and et cetera from September to March. So we do not have staff to be taking on additional projects like this. We have just enough staff to maintain the workload that we have day to day. So to get through this project, we will do what we can, but it's important that council understands as well that that's not to be the solution moving forward on other projects. So same as the last meeting, it's administration's recommendation to award the contract to Glengarry Millwright for $385,000.
Okay, thanks very much, Ms. Servitz, for your updated detailed report. Are there any questions or comments of council? Councillor McDonnell, then Councillor Lang.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. After the last report, I went out and took a look at the bridge. Thank you for bringing the information you did. Example, the decking or the grading for the bridge was purchased ahead of time, and the last one was just installed as opposed to purchased and then installed by the contractor. So that does add a lot of context to our last cost. The bridge, yes, it is significantly different. There is no high-rise Ironside, the girders that you were mentioning, whereas Bridge End and Williamstown both did have that. You know, but I think if we go back just on the inflation, yeah, they seem to be coming in probably not far off where they should be. It's still high, I think, but it's a tight timeline. It's a large project, and I think I'm all right supporting it at this point. I think if the only other option at this point would be to run it to its extended life and then close it. So I don't think there's anybody who wants to see that bridge closed. As far as using staff resources, I'm glad to hear that we plan to use our staff resources. I don't think we have to go crazy with it. I was out there, and as well as Councillor Lang, there's, you know, probably a dozen boards that have to be changed out of the entire bridge. The re-anchor down the one railing for sure is a little looser than the other. I don't think there's too much work to be done out there, and I know we've got some pretty competent guys in our rec department as well as through our roads. If we had to borrow them or steal them for an afternoon, I don't see it being a whole lot of repairs myself, but I don't want to see us put a lot of money into this bridge ahead of the winter to then tear it back up. That I wouldn't support going over a larger sum of money should not be put into this bridge to tear it back up. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Ms. Servage, for the report. I won't repeat what Councillor McDonnell said. I did like your introduction. I think we've been reacting to the peanut line for quite a few years now, maybe before this council even. We need to have some kind of a plan. But that being said, I don't think there's any appetite in the community to eliminate the peanut line from Williamstown westward. And I'm quite sure of that. So I think this structure is one that does need to be fixed. It's an integral part of that trail system. From Williamstown east is where most of these other structures were that we're going to have to look at in the future. It said 1 to 5 years. I think we do need to sit down, or I guess it won't be us at this point. It'll be whoever the next council is. Hopefully we're there. But whatever this next council needs to sit down and have a plan there so that we're not reacting every time something comes up that, you know, spends, you know, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. We have a plan and we decide what we would like to do with it. So I'm glad to hear you saying that's the direction you'd like to see us go. So I'm in favor of doing this. I know it's been 2 weeks since we had hoped to have this, or you had hoped to have this awarded. I would like to still try to hold the contractor. He thought they could have it done early December, so let's give them until mid-December. And if it can't be done, then we'll find out then. But I don't think we should give up and say it's going to be next year now. I hate the idea of spending money to fix up the wooden structure and then tear it all off. Same as Councillor McDonnell had said. It just, if we could do it very cheaply, if we spend, you know, $500 or $600 on it, that's one thing. But if it's going to cost $5,000 or $10,000, and then that's all going to be tore down next year, I'd like to see if the contractor can still finish the project this year. But I am in favor of awarding it.
Deputy Mayor Jaworski?
I agree with what my council colleagues have said about if we can do it now, rather than spending a bit of money to be wasted, essentially. I think that's a good. I think that's a good idea if it's possible. I mean, I was very reticent about this last time, but so I wanted to thank Ms. Servage for all the additional info that you've provided. So I have a much better understanding now of, you know, what the project is and just how much is being done, like in terms of like the cross timbers and the decking, and like there's a lot of, you know, the replacing the timbers to steel. That represents a lot more of a project than I had envisioned. So thank you for that additional information. And it is still a large amount of money, but it makes more sense now. And certainly I wouldn't want to go to a low, like I wouldn't want to go back to wood just to have to redo this. You know, again, if we're going to put good money in it, I want to go with the option that's going to give us the longest life for the bridge, because as Councillor Lang has explained, this one, I mean, I think we can, you know, put that money in the bank that this one is we're going to keep using this one. So let's do it so that it lasts. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for your report. I certainly am in favor of it as well. I was last week, but I was outnumbered, so I just, so basically, I want to speak to the provisional items, because that's not really written here in the staff report, or, pardon me, the resolution. So could you maybe talk to that, and what is your take on provision item 1 and 2? But again, alluding to what Councillor Lang and McDonnell said, and Deputy Mayor Jaworski, if this project could get done this fall into winter, that'd be great. And if it's not, I would also like to see staff at least reach out to the Glendalers and keep them fully abreast of what's going on, and let their administration know, and they can get the word out to the users, basically, that to be very cautious. So yeah, if you could maybe speak to the provisional items 1 and 2, and if they're kind of deferred for the time being, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, I did talk about the provisional items at the last meeting, and I'm just checking to see if it's in this report, but I'm not seeing it. So I'll talk about it quickly. Provisional item 1 is if we were to create a guardrail that leads up to the bridge, like a longer, it's a guide rail, a longer guide rail up to the bridge. Provisional item 2 is more of just a railing that comes off of the bridge, more so like what is on County Road 17. Now, I've talked to the engineers, and they are recommending that we do provisional item 1, which is more money, but because of the way the structure is and the way the trail is, it kind of drops down on the side of the peanut line, so that's what they are recommending. I didn't include it as part of like the recommendation for the submission awarding for $385,000, just because I would like to meet with the proponent that we do award it to and confirm with them which one we are going to go with. But that would also be part of this project as well, which is why we had put, I know there's an error in the recommendation that $71,000 be transferred from reserves to fund this, but under the impact on 2022 budget, number 17, it's saying that approximately $100,000 will be required from general reserves, just so that we can make sure that we are covering those provisional items.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense, and I certainly support item 1 of the provisional items. It's quite steep there. We were there, well, I guess it's a couple years ago now, but the day we did the tour of the peanut line, and there was fresh gravel, and it was pretty loose and steep. So, okay, Councillor McDonnell, you had your hand up.
I guess I was just going to speak to provisional items, and I was actually going to say provisional 2, because I think if you continue on past the bridge, going west, it's steep all the way along pretty near to the next farm field. I mean, whether the guardrail's there 5 feet or whether it's 20 feet, it's still, after the guardrail's gone, you're still going to be a steep drop. My personal opinion, it's not like there's a curve there, but anyways, I guess we could see at that point, maybe it'd be worth involving the Glendalers on that decision as well, whether it's just a meet on site at that time, whenever you meet with the contractor. But I know Councillor Luck had her hand up ahead of me, so I maybe took her
apologize, I didn't see
spot.
it. My apologies, Councillor Luck.
No. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McDonnell. I guess I just was resonating my thoughts with all my fellow councillors, and thank you, Ms. Servage, for all the additional information on this report. It's definitely eye-opening, especially with GM of Infrastructure, Ms. McDonald, with the previous report. That being said, I'm definitely in favor of this. It's a hard pill to swallow when it's just one bridge, but that being said, costs seem to be rising every year, and if we delay it, it's just going to keep getting worse, and we're going to need repairs, and it's just a snowball effect from there. As to going back to the engineering department to rework it, I'm not in favor of moving backwards. I think what we have here is gonna last. It's gonna last, so, thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Councillor Luck. Okay, so basically, I'm going to read the resolution, but I feel there is a mistake because the numbers don't add up, Madam Clerk. So basically, the way I see it is that we have 223,000 in the peanut line reserves. The project is 385,000, and I see, okay.
Sorry.
Could you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely, through you, Mr. Mayor. So
Thank you.
there was an amendment made to the resolution after the agenda package went out. The reason and the number that was changed was, the number to be transferred from general reserves was initially 70-something thousand. In the resolution now, it's been changed to 100,000, and that is includes some additional funds for the provisional items or minor maintenance costs. Am I correct in that, Mr. CEO?
So where's the other 62,000 coming from? So my math says that it's 385, and we have 223 in the reserves, showing an outstanding balance of 162,000. And the resolution says to bring 100,000 out of, be transferred from reserves.
There are funds that were already budgeted in 2022 for
Okay.
this project. So if you take those funds away from the total,
Okay.
the remaining balance in the resolution.
Perfect.
But,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. There was some missing, yes, Councillor Luck?
Sorry, and maybe I'm just confusing myself. On bullet point number 9 says the 2022 budget included 130,000 for the County Road 19 peanut line project. 2021, it was carried over 19,755. And then
Thanks.
we also have CA and admin and provisional. Is that still enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it still enough funds?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure. All right, so I'm going to read the resolution now. Moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 159-2022 be received and that tender 25-2022 for the Peanut Line Bridge rehabilitation be awarded to Glengarry Millwrights per their submission of $385,000 plus HST, and that $223,000 be transferred from the Peanut Line Reserve and $100,000 be transferred from the general reserves to fund the project, and furthermore, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all relevant documents. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you all very much, especially for your efforts, Ms. Servige. And moving on to staff report 159-2022, Ms. Haley.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This property is located on part of Lot 26 Concession 4 in the geographic township of Lancaster. It was recently subject to a consent application where the property owner, Nuba Brant Farms Limited or Incorporated, severed a surplus dwelling to the farming operation. It resulted in the retained land being required to be rezoned to prohibit residential construction, as well as to reduce the minimum lot area from 20 hectares to 11.06 hectares. Council may recall that we had a public meeting at our last council meeting. I shouldn't say our last one, I'm sorry, I was away for our last one. It was in our September 6th council meeting, and we had no members of the public that came to speak in opposition towards the proposed amendment. This amendment really is a housekeeping amendment as it is required by the provincial policy statement and our official plans. So administration has no concerns with recommending to council that this bylaw be approved. That would allow for a site-specific zoning exemption to the subject property to prohibit the residential construction and to reduce the minimum lot area. So thank you.
All right, thanks for Ms. Haley. Pretty straightforward. Are there any other questions or comments of council? Seeing none, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 159-2022 be received and that bylaw 68-2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 38-09, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of South Glengarry, to rezone the property legally described as part of Lot 26, Concession 4 in the geographic Township of Lancaster, now in the Township of South Glengarry, County of Glengarry, from agricultural to agricultural exception 32, to reduce the minimum lot area from 20 hectares to 11.6 hectares, and to prohibit residential construction be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this third day of October 2022. The Council of the Township of South Glengarry confirms that no public comments were received on this application. Therefore, there was no effect on the decision. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Haley. And moving on to staff report 160-2022, electronic monitoring policy. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The bylaw that's before council this evening through this report is to adopt an electronic monitoring policy for the Township of South Glengarry. This policy is something that's now mandated by the province through Bill 88, being the Working for Workers Act, which amended the Employment Standards Act, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and adopted a new act being the Digital Platform Workers' Rights Act. So what is an electronic monitoring policy? Any employer with more than 25 employees is now required to develop a written electronic monitoring policy. So if the employer monitors their employees electronically, the policy has to describe how we are monitoring them and in what circumstances, the purpose that that information is obtained for, as well as the date the policy was prepared and when we make any changes to it, and we must provide a copy of this policy to all employees. So the policy itself, essentially, what's contained in this policy we're already doing. We just have to now put it in writing and provide that information to our employees so that they know how and when they're being monitored. So for example, to get into our municipal office, we now have electronic passes. You tap at the back door so that you can get in, and that will monitor, who is coming in the building and at what time. So as part of our policy, we have to advise employees that they are being monitored in that fashion. Not, and to say monitored, it's not, we're not going in daily to check the logs. However, if we needed to, if there was, say, a break-in at the office and we needed to check, we wanted to go back and look who was in the building, we can do so that way. And that's just one example. So the policy is before you this evening. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks very much for your comments, Ms. Clerk. I just have one comment, and I made it at County Council as well, and it's just, it is a pretty straightforward policy, but I always like it when Council has an opportunity to review it, because if we don't pass this tonight, we're then in default of the legislation. So if we could have maybe in the future do like a first and second reading, I've got to be consistent. I asked for this at the County Council meeting, and usually we do a lot of our larger bylaws. That's my comments. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden, and continuing on the theme of being consistent with what I said, with what was said at County Council. I tested whether or not, like, the way it's written, in that it's, we're referring to employees, but that, this equally, I mean, we're not discriminating on whether or not the data that's being monitored could be that of councils as well. But as I understand it, or at least what was explained to me last time, is that the bill specifically speaks to employees, but I was wondering if there need to be clarification around that council is also included in this, or that council, for this purposes of this policy, is also considered employees, something to that effect.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an immediate answer to that comment. My initial interpretation would be that council would not be subject to this policy because you're not an employee. or you would not be considered an employee pursuant to our policies in the Municipal Act. So in my opinion, you would not be subject to the policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Sam McTennell, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 160-2022 be received, and that bylaw 65-2022, being a bylaw to adopt an electronic monitoring policy for the Township of South Glengarry, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this third day of October 2022. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to 8C, bylaw to accept road widening. Ms. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. This bylaw is a very straightforward housekeeping item. Council sees these bylaws from time to time where we are accepting a road widening as a result of conditions of a severance application being met. Typically, we wait till we have, 5 or 6 to do them all at once, but the lawyer for this particular item was looking to have that done sooner than later, so we've got that on there for you this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Pretty well straightforward. Any questions or comments? Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. It doesn't tell us where it is other than part lot 39 and a PIN number, but for those of us who don't know exactly where that PIN number is, it would be nice to know where these are. And I will make one more comment. It hasn't happened in the last 4 years that I've been here, but we keep taking these road widenings and we do not pay for them. Sooner or later, I would like to see us start paying for them.
So noted. Thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, moved by Martin Lang, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it resolved that staff report 161-2022 be received, and that bylaw 67-2022 being a bylaw to accept certain lands as road allowance within the Township of South Glengarry and to dedicate same to the public use as a public highway be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this third day of October 2022. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving right along. 8D, road naming bylaw amendment, Silmser Road. Ms. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Again, the bylaw here that's before you this evening essentially is a housekeeping item. We're looking to clean up some discrepancies that pop up along the way. So this would be a bylaw to amend our road naming bylaw for Silmser Road. The United Counties GIS department noted a discrepancy between what was in our bylaw, which was initially passed by the former township of Charlottenburg, versus what we have in our GIS system, as well as our 911 records. So they asked us to pass this amendment so that we can have everything lined up. Our GM of infrastructure concurred with what the proper name of the road should be, which is now requiring this amendment. So subject to any questions, that is the bylaw that's before you.
Okay, perfect. Any questions or comments? Pretty straightforward. Seeing none. Moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 162-2022 be received, and that bylaw 64-2022, being a bylaw to amend road naming bylaw 16-96, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this third day of October 2022. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. And moving on to staff report 163-2022, Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, this is a fun little one. It is a bylaw to bring into effect a mailbox replacement policy, which is codifying our current practice. In summary, if a plow is going by and heavy snow flies off the wing, smashes into a mailbox with a weak support, and it falls over, the township would not be responsible. If the plow goes by, smashes into it with our wing, then we would go back and fix it. This is based on the county's mailbox replacement policy, so it's in line with what other jurisdictions are doing. And as I said, this is what we're already doing. And it's before you tonight because we have had significant staff turnover in roads. So we have new plow drivers, and just this will allow us, when residents, hopefully not as many as last year, but when they come in, we have a consistent response and can hand out our policy. So that is what this is. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Luck?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. This has actually happened to me once, but that's no surprise being on the 34 where I am. I'm just curious, like in your section 2.1.2, you say that it's up to the discretion of general manager, roads manager. Like, will you, I guess I'm just curious about what you perceive as the steps. Like, do you go out, inspect, say like it's the post itself that just like got splintered and cracked? Do you assess the condition of the post and try and get an age on it? Or I'm just curious about how you go about that. Thanks.
That's a fair question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So often it's not me, it would be the roads manager who would go out and take a visual inspection. And I can say from looking at a fair number of these last year, it's very obvious when it was the plow. You can see where the wing hit it. So if it's just a post that seems to have splintered at the bottom, that's likely not us. We often hit the actual box itself. And if a plow hits a mailbox, it runs through, right? And it just mashes it, and your box ends up far down the road. If it's a cute little thing that's knocked over, that's likely the weight of the snow that's simply just like popped it down. So it's pretty distinct, but a visual inspection is undertaken. And kind of a fun little note, the plow driver who did smash the mailbox is the one who then goes out to fix it so that they try not to do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have I guess in, it's item number 6. We have a few areas in the township where, you know, some of the houses are pretty nice, and they have, you know, it fits the style of the home. I don't 100% agree with that. Like, I think that if we break it, we should be replacing it. I certainly understand there needs to be limits around that, but maybe, I don't know, there needs to be like a specific, this is what we're supplying you with in this policy. Because I'm thinking if I buy one of those green Rubbermaid plastic mailboxes that come from the ground up, that's what should be replaced if we damaged it. And this report says it's not going to happen. I think there needs to be middle grounds.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can revisit it. However, this is, as I said, kind of the approach that the townships around here have taken and the counties. So we supply, they're just little metal boxes, and we throw in a post. I know once we get into deviating from a standard installation, then we do have people who have $200, $300 mailboxes, and like, where does this stop? So one option that places, or how do I say this? Community mailboxes provided by Canada Post are an excellent thing, and they don't get hit by our plows, and they would be a good alternative for anywhere that feels like they are having too many mailboxes being knocked over. But we can revisit if that's council's desire.
Okay, Councillor Martineau.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd advise that, or I'd advise to your point as well. I think we should readdress that, because if I run into a 95 Honda Civic on the street and I run into a 2022 Ferrari, you've got to pay for what you've got. I don't say we go out replacing, if I've got a cookie cutter mailbox on a wooden fence post at home for my mailbox, I don't say we have to replace it to a higher standard, but you should get what we destroy. At the end of the day, the plow driver is at fault if we're actually hitting it. If the snow plow if it's just the snow, it says in the policy that if it's the snow load, well, sorry, that's on you. But if we are dropping a wing and taking out somebody's $300 mailbox, I don't think they should be on the hook for the $300 mailbox just because our plow driver was either tired or the end of his shift or whatever the case may be, made a mistake and hit it. I think I'd agree with that.
If I may, and through you, Mr. Mayor, many of the mailboxes that are, so there's always a dispute, and many of these mailboxes are installed incorrectly. They're too low, they're too close to the road, they're hanging at an improper place, and it's near impossible to tell some of that information once they've been smashed. I suppose the purpose of this is to provide consistency, so if we're making a varying level of service based on what's out there, we don't really need a policy.
Subsequent?
I'll just say from experience as not a plow driver, but a snow removal employee, you know every laneway by the end of the winter and generally on the same route every year, so you know where you're going. You generally have a good idea of what you're looking at. You get to know the route like the back of your hand, and you get to know the houses like the back of your hand. You know who's nice to you and who's not, so I'll say that it's not like these guys are changing routes every day. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden. Yeah, I'm sort of two minds. I think it's very important that we have a policy because it seemed to me like in the past it was different between the counties and us. But to tell you the truth, I've never read the county's policy. I've just referred people to the counties, and it seems like it got taken care of. And I didn't know, I don't know what it says about, is it standard, non-standard? But I expect it's the same. It would be like this because you went through that one. So I don't know if there's a way. But to your point, Ms. McDonald, about if we're going to, some of this issue is to make sure that what goes in next is in the right location, is well done, is less likely if it was an accident. I mean, if it was maybe it wasn't in the best spot to start with, it would help alleviate that. So I don't know if there's a way, I'm sort of thinking out loud here that there's a way that, we will replace it with a standard mailbox. It sounds like we will do the work, but maybe there's an option that if you have a nicer mailbox, that we'll reimburse you after you've finished installing it up to a maximum of something. I don't know, something along those lines. So that I think I'm thinking a lot of people get really annoyed with this because of the time and the effort to have to go and fix it. But if they're really tied to the kind of mailbox they have, then they maybe, this is one way. Because I don't want us to have to start combing Home Hardwares and Ronas to try and find the identical one that they had. And because I just feel like that will become very complicated and it's not the best use of our time. But, and just Councillor McDonnell's point, yeah, Maple Road was a crime scene, let's call it, for mailboxes last year. So, yeah, it does happen. It generally doesn't happen again though in the same year, and I expect that it won't happen again this year. But yeah, folks are not happy, and I think we got to find a way that makes it reasonable for the amount of effort at the township, but also reasonable for the residents. So that's an idea. So I don't know if it's something we want to take back and think about some more. But thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Lang?
I'm okay with the way it is.
Okay.
I think we live on rural roads. We know that these things can happen. Most of us don't spend a fortune on our mailbox. Maybe some do, but most don't because we know that it doesn't have to be the plow. If you have real heavy, wet snow, it hits it hard. So I'm okay with the standard mailbox, and if they want to upgrade further, I mean, they can always put a bigger post that won't go down.
Alrighty, so moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 163-2022 be received and that bylaw 66-2022, being a bylaw to adopt a mailbox replacement policy, read first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this third day of October 2022. All those in favor of the motion? Oh, motion is carried. Thank you. Alrighty. And moving on to items for consideration, SD&G draft streetscaping and roundabout cost sharing policy. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This is an opportunity for Township Council to provide feedback to the county's draft roundabout and streetscaping cost-sharing policy. Right now, there's no practical application here in South Glengarry since we have no roundabouts and no planned roundabouts on county roads. But if that should happen, then this policy sets out how those costs would be shared. So the counties would be responsible for 100% of the design and construction of anything safety. Cost sharing is 50-50 split on aesthetic pieces. And then for maintenance, similarly, county is responsible for 100% of maintenance on non-landscaping elements and 50-50 split on the aesthetic pieces. So if council has any feedback that they'd like passed on, I'm happy to receive that and provide it to Mr. DeHaan on your behalf.
Okay, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Jaworski?
Just to relay, so this obviously came to county council already, and there was a lot of back and forth from reps from South Stormont and South Dundas, where they have these. So there was and they've gone through this. So I think, that relying on those folks is reasonable through their experience. So certainly I defer to what's been written with their input already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So one of the major concerns was input from the lower tiers was not listened to or taken into too much consideration. So as long as there's built-in mechanisms that, they do take our feedback and what we'd like to see, I'm okay with it. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think my point kind of resonates with Deputy Mayor Jaworski, in that I was just curious about, when you enter Long Sault, there's like 2 roundabouts for South Stormont, and I was just wondering if, because it says that it was consulted with South Dundas, but I was just wondering if there was any consultation with South Stormont on how their policy is made.
Yeah, I was at the counties. I believe they were both consulted. Yep.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, this request was put out to all the lower tiers. We all have different names, but in my position to garner feedback, so hopefully everyone else is bringing it to their respective councils.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I don't have a resolution, so we'll move on to item 9B, resolution. Bill 3, Strong Mayors Act. And I believe that was at the last meeting, members wanted it brought forward. It's moved by Councillor Lang and seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Did you guys want to speak to this at all, or did you want me to just go ahead and read the resolution?
We did speak to it last month, so I think unless something's changed or anybody has any questions.
Okay, I'll go right into reading the resolution. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby supports the resolution passed by the Council of the Town of Kingsville opposing Bill 3, the Strong Mayors Act, Building Homes Act 2022. That Council urges the Government of Ontario to consider other means to construct more housing in Ontario, including amending the Planning Act and funding more affordable housing, and that a copy of this resolution be provided to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Municipal Housing and Municipal Affairs and Housing, MPP Nolan Quinn, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and all Ontario municipalities. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for bringing that forward. And we're moving on to the consent agenda. 10A, Sapphire State Phase 5 update. I asked for this to be brought forward. The report is clear, but I didn't see if is there a tentative date for construction to start, like houses?
Good question through you, Mr. Mayor. No.
No?
We'll need to accept the works first and open the road, but as you can see, they are planning on putting down their granular A this week, so potentially soon. Maybe I can ask Joe, GM Haley, how long after granular A to acceptance of work for something like this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have the subdivision agreement in front of me, so I'm going to go by memory, but we do require granular A, granular B, and first lift of asphalt, as well as the acceptance of works. We require the stormwater management pond to be constructed, functioning, ditching, seeding. So I think there's a little bit more work to be done. If I remember our conversation correctly, you were thinking maybe spring of 2023. It would be a known, and of course, we're not going to bring a report to council to accept the works until our engineer is satisfied that the works are completed as per the approved design.
All righty, thank you for the update. Just with the housing crisis, I was curious to
I
know if we
know,
had a date.
It'd be great.
Yep, thank you very much for that. Was there any other questions of members of council? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, 10B, Lancaster Pump Station. I asked for this to be brought forward again. Sorry to keep you here, Mr. Seguin. I just wanted to thank you guys for this detailed report. Basically, it highlights the sensitivity and the urgency that can develop like that on our infrastructure systems. And I really appreciated the detailed report, and I just want to convey to council and the public that it's so important to have reserves in place so that this doesn't affect the day-to-day operations. So thank you for that. Questions or comments? Okay, I guess it's just me. Thank you. Moving on to 10C, myself again. Sorry. The Food Cycler app. Oh, pardon me. This is another one. Yeah, it's been a great day. Recycle Coach implementation. Ms. O'Shaughnessy, I want to thank you for this report being brought forward, and I'm super excited about this. So I'm just curious to know what the full rollout plan is. You've kind of detailed some of it, and I'm just wondering when and how, besides the book, are we going to roll this out?
Perfect. So, hi, Council, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So our plan to go forward is to first implement and collaborate with our internet provider, as well as our, I guess it would be called to implement it onto our website. So what we have to do is work with our website provider to get it implemented. It'll go under the waste management. So everyone will be able to use the app, whether they have a mobile device or they can just log on to the internet. So that's going to be implemented starting next week. So the week of December 10th, probably Wednesday or Thursday, depending on what day the ad bag is.
December or
Sorry.
October?
I always work ahead here. October 10th.
Okay.
Depending on what day the ad bag is being delivered to the homes, is the day that we'll launch the program. So what'll happen is, as to date today, we actually have 30 residents that have already signed up for the app. And weekly, with our Waste Wednesdays, we will push the app out to residents. I've also talked to local businesses in the area that are willing to put up flyers in their business to help us with the app. So yeah, it's going to be a weekly implementation and push out to the community.
Great. I certainly am looking forward to it. I've heard really good reviews in regards to other municipalities using it. I believe North Dundas and North Glengarry are using it right now.
Yeah, so we're actually the last lower tier to come on board with the program. But you know what? It's exciting. It's going to be a great partnership. I think it's really going to help the community as well as our help reduce contamination, right, within our
Yes.
landfill and whatnot.
And there'll be full instructions on how to upload it.
Exactly. It's very user-friendly. Anyone can download it if you have an Apple device or if you have a Google device. It's easy to download. It's easy to sign up. All you have to do is put your name and your address, and it'll pop up with a calendar, and that calendar is already set with all your information. So it'll show you what day your recycling is, your garbage pickup. We'll be able to implement anything that we're doing extra. So right now we're picking up debris. So we have that on there. Also, residents can ask questions on the app, or they can request changes be made if they feel like that there's an error.
Awesome. I think that you can tell I'm a little excited about this. So, and when it goes on our website, will it pop up like as an alert,
So
like
through
some of
you-
the things?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we can definitely do that as a pop-up, and then we can have it redirected to our garbage and recycling page.
Perfect. I was told that Ms. McDonald had her hand up, so I'm sorry I didn't see you.
It's all right. And through you, Mr. Mayor, Ms. O'Shaughnessy is selling herself short. She's also developed stickers for when people don't put out the recyclables correctly. Look at a sticker and it will refer them to Recycle Coach so that they know what they're doing, and we'll include it in our one-page collections calendar so that everyone can find it. So just don't sell yourself short. You've done a lot of work.
So yeah, well, there'll be a QR code inside of our fall and winter community guide. We'll direct people right directly to the site to download, as well as stickers. If for some reason their recycling at home is contaminated, it's not picked up, that sticker will be put onto their either blue bag or their bin, and they'll be able to scan it, and then they'll be able to put in the reason why it wasn't picked up.
Excellent. I had 3 calls this week about cardboard, and I spoke
Right.
with the contractor, and they explained to me the situation, and I said, did you put stickers? And we're working on it,
Yeah.
so I'm really,
We are.
really happy and thankful. Any other questions? I'm sorry I'm rambling on here, folks. No? All right, so thank you for that, Michelle and Ms. O'Shaughnessy. Really appreciate it. So I guess that's it for the consent agenda. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accept the consent agenda items. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And no closed session, confirming bylaw. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it resolved that bylaw 69-2022, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in in open council this 3rd day of October 2022. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And one more item that I forgot to mention is I did want to send a thank you out to staff and our volunteer fire services for the hazardous waste day that happened a couple, well, it seems like last weekend, I think, or the weekend before. The time's flying by. It was very well attended, and it's actually the first time that I went there. Happens when you buy a house, and I had a bunch of paint cans. So well done, well organized, and thank you very much. Moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 8:52 p.m. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried.